Hello, welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite British bands of all time, Suede. Not just Suede, but a very specific era of Suede. Suede featuring Bernard Butler on guitar. He was their original guitarist. You can have your Suede, we all have a Suede, but the first two albums are my Suede. So that's the only Suede I'm going to talk about here. Britpop is a bullshit term. Doesn't mean anything, so we're not going to talk about it. I'm not going to get into who was a better band, Oasis or Blur. It's Blur. I'm not going to compare Suede or Gene or Pulp or anyone else. This is just early Bernard Butler Suede. Now, that said, let's get into it. So the story of early Suede actually begins way back in 1989 with singer Brett Anderson, bassist Matt Osmond, and guitarist Justine Frischmann. Frischmann and Anderson were dating at the time. The band knew they needed a great guitarist to make it to the next level, and they got Bernard Butler, who was only 19 at the time. The band started gigging around with a drum machine behind them until they finally got their drummer, Simon Gilbert. Justine Frischmann left before they recorded any material, but I just want to say Justine was super important to the formation of the band, to making sure that the band went out and performed, and for knowing the chemistry wasn't right in the band and leaving, at which point the band took off. So Justine was very, very important. She went on to form Elastica. Elastica was a great band. They released two albums I love, did way better in the US than Suede ever did, and then just disappeared. Anyway, the band came out in 1992. They released The Drowners as their first single, and then later in March of 1993, they released their full-length album, Suede. This is the CD. It also came out on cassette. It was also out on vinyl. I had it on vinyl and I wore it out and later sold my Grooveware copy and picked up the 2018 pressing. This is the 25th anniversary. Some of us are really getting old. This is a 2-disc set put out by Demon Records. The first reissue that Demon Records put out was garbage. This one sounds a lot better. The first disc is the proper debut album. The second disc is filled with B-sides. You can see just how many songs are on it. It's a great collection. This album opens with So Young. What a great track. Their sound is fully established. It's the perfect introduction to the band. It doesn't sound like anything else. At the time, grunge was big. It's the opposite of grunge, yet using the same instruments. It's a unique, romantic sound that they achieve here. There's a through line here in this music. From the Kinks, to Bowie, to T-Rex, to Cockney Rebel, to the Smiths. Here to Suede. They sound sexy and British, which in 1993, coming out of the Manchester scene, was a breath of fresh air. The lyrics of the song highlight how Brett Anderson simply doesn't sing about normal rock and roll things. We're so young and so gone. Let's chase the dragon. Oh. You want to chase the dragon? I'd love to chase the dragon with you. Guys, you want to chase the dragon? The song Animal Nitrate is the highest charting single from the album. It reached number 7 on the UK charts. And that's a real distinction for a song having to do with drug abuse. The solo on Animal Nitrate is the first indication on the album that their guitarist is special. It's an outrageously sexy, languid guitar tone that Bernard has. And it's all over this album. His playing on the outro of this song, along with Brett's vocalizations, are more hallmarks of Suede's unique sound. She's Not Dead changes up the mood, taking us down a slow, delicate road that later explodes into gothic beauty. The lyrics, "She's fucking with a slip of a man while the engine ran," is some of the best imagery in their entire lyrical canon. The intro to the song Moving really highlights the stellar drumming of Simon Gilbert, who flies under the radar this entire album, only due to the undeniable majesty of the Anderson-Butler duo. The song's chorus allowed bass player Matt Osmond to carry the song while Brett's underwater vocals crawl their way into your brain. Bernard's guitar solo sees him at his most inventive, and this track just may be the overlooked gem on this album. Pantomime Horse is a frighteningly tragic ballad whose lyrics are hard to decipher and feature couplets such as, "I was conned by a circus hand, tragic as the son of a Superman. I would die for the stars," she said. "This is what I get from my beautiful head." If I were to make a video for this, I'd set it to edited footage from the movie Freaks. It's a very cinematic song with very sad imagery. This song was inspired by Brett's ex-girlfriend slash ex-bandmate Justine Frischmann, and you can tell from the song it was a very sad breakup. As Brett repeatedly sings "Have You Ever Tried It That Way" over the long outro, you'll hear exactly why they were a favorite band of Morrissey. Serious influence there. The Drowners was the band's first single, released in May of 1992, and is probably my pick for early Suede's best song. The drumming intro is strong and memorable, and when Bernard's guitar comes in, it's amazing. It is easily some of Brett's best and most sexually ambiguous lyrics. Those are sort of the same thing for him. With lines like, well, he writes the line, wrote right down my spine. It says, oh, do you believe in love there? Getting hot. At the time this record came out, Brett was playing with the press the same way Bowie used to play with the press. And he said statements like, I'm a bisexual man who is yet to have a homosexual experience. He's playing with that same sort of feeling on this track. We kiss in his room to a popular tune. It's a sexy track. And I'll tell you something, I've been straight my whole life. Brett Anderson, sexy, sexy person. This track perfectly conveys the feeling of being so consumed by love that it's almost like being smacked out on heroin. Suede excels at outros, and as Brett repeatedly sings "You're Taking Me Over," you'll be singing along as the song's cryptic lyrics continue to flood your mind. Sleeping Pills is that most elusive of songcraft, one whose sound exactly captures the mood of the story it's telling. The lyrics concern rundown housewives whose only escape from their put-upon lives is by taking Valium. When Brett talked about how important this song was for them, he said it wasn't the first ballad they'd written, but it was the first piece of really beautiful music they'd written. So he wanted to pair it with lyrics that addressed real issues, and not meaningless rock rubbish. Mission accomplished. It's one of the most emotionally affecting songs on the debut LP. Speaking of emotionally effective songs, the next track, Breakdown, is as beautiful as it is harrowing. It was written about Brett's friend who was suffering from depression. That friend later committed suicide, and Brett wrote 2 more songs about him, He's Gone and Simon. Breakdown's lyrics are haunting, especially the song's chorus. Oh, if you were the one, would I even notice now my mind is gone? Oh, if you were the one, would I even notice? That poor guy. Really, really sad. Almost sensing that we'd need a pickup after Breakdown. Suede gives us Metal Mickey, which is the first song I ever heard by them. Thank you, MTV's 120 Minutes. It's perhaps Bernard Butler's most iconic guitar line. And it's got the most visceral lyrics of any Suede song, which at face value seem to be about a strip club. But the song is supposedly about Katie Jane Garside, who was the lead singer for the 90s alt-rock band Daisy Chainsaw. Remember them, fellow adults? She used to wear a lot of glitter on her eyes, as the lyrics point to. I think this is a case of marrying those 2 inspirations into a new reality. Metal Mickey would be the song I'd play for anyone if they were curious about early Suede, followed by the Drowners. Animal Lover is a killer rock song. It supposedly has to do with Brett's girlfriend at the time of its writing, again Justine Frischmann from Elastica, who for a short time overlapped dating Brett Anderson with dating Damon Albarn from Blur. The song is about how sometimes she would return to Brett with scratches on her back from Damon, and he would send her back to Damon with love bites on her neck, and the 2 were sort of communicating through her. That's not creepy. Bernard's guitar outro is raunch and roll perfection. The album closer is The Next Life, which is a very pretty piano ballad that is a tribute to Brett's deceased mother. And for such an album this gorgeous, I'd be disappointed if it ended any other way. It's sad yet beautiful, and the final lyrics of the album are pitch perfect. See you in your next life, when we'll fly away for good. As I mentioned, this debut album reissue comes with a second disc of B-sides, and I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about a few of them, especially since one of them is my second favorite Suede song of all time, My Insatiable One. The lyrics are somewhat cryptic, which you know I love, and Bernard's guitar is front and center, which I also love. It's a pretty mid-tempo number, and Brett's vocals are on point. The song manages to rhyme the words leotard and retard. Not cool, but kinda clever. Suede excelled at turning what could be simple songs into majestic epics. Suede have so many great B-sides. It's nuts. I'll put what they leave off albums up against other bands' albums. He's Dead has some thrillingly snarling guitar work from Bernard, and the track really would have fit well on the debut LP. The lyrics are brilliantly simple and simply brilliant. They begin, "I wake up every day, but I don't want it that way." Come on, how easy is that? Attention, every other band writing lyrics right now. Stop doing too much. Other bonus tracks on here include a dramatic piano version of My Insatiable One and a cover of the song Brass in Pocket, originally by the Pretenders. So if you track down this 2018 pressing, I think you get a lot of bang for the buck, and I think you're going to love exploring not just the debut album, but the B-sides. They copped a lot of them for the compilation Sci-Fi Lullabies with later Suede, but you really want to hear it back to back with the contemporary debut album. Great, great album. When I bought my original album, it came with a VHS, Love and Poison. This is a great concert film. Recorded on May 16, 1993 at the Brixton Academy. This catches the boys in their beautiful youth just exploding on stage. It's such an exciting concert, beautifully shot, and they bring their A game. This is actually where I first heard My Insatiable One. It also boasts other B-sides, such as Painted People and To the Birds, as well as their full debut album. One thing that pisses me off though is how the wizard of a director, during the song The Drowners, decided to skew the vertical hold so that the picture was constantly falling throughout the song. Get it? The Drowners, drowning, drowners. No, it was a reach even then. So fire up your VHS. I'm kidding. This has been remastered just this year. I'll put a link to it below. You have to check out Love and Poison to really understand the appeal of Suede. Before we get to Suede's next album, they released one more big single, which just happens to be my favorite song of all time by Suede. By this time in America, a folk singer who had been operating in the US under the name Suede decided to slap an injunction on the band. And so from that point on, in the US, they had to be known as the London Suede. Nobody was happy about that, least of all Brett Anderson. There was still Suede in England, but come to America and you gotta cover that up. This is the Stay Together EP. Stay Together is my favorite Suede song. This features the edit version of Stay Together, which is 4 minutes. That's a great song. Nothing wrong with that song. But it also features the full version of Stay Together, which is almost 9 minutes, and is my favorite Suede song. You know a band is great when your two favorite songs by them, My Insatiable One and Stay Together, aren't even on any proper albums. It ticked me off that I had to hunt them down back when the albums came out, but now I kind of like it. It was my little adventure. The lyrics are some of Brett Anderson's best. Come to my house tonight. We can be together in the nuclear sky, and we will dance in the poison rain, and we can stay a while in heaven today. Oh, it's just lovely. That's a Suede love song, and it's epic. This track, more than any other, points to where they're headed on their next album. It just sounds like a bigger track than anything on their debut LP. It's more adventurous. It's longer, way longer. And its length is kind of the point, especially for Bernard. Stay Together is allowed to go wherever it wants to go, and it wants to go everywhere. I'll put a link to it below so that you can check it out in all its majesty. This EP features a song called The Living Dead, which is about someone who is leaving a heroin junkie. It features very clever lyrics, including the line, "Nothing here works, but your works." Devastatingly clever. Another song here is Dark Star, which, according to whoever you believe, is either about Brett's ex-girlfriend Sam, or about revenge for the subjugation of India by Britain, or about Jesus coming back as a black woman, or it's just about Frida Kahlo. Whichever of those is true, it works, and it's a nice little track. Anyway, the sound captured here on this EP is one that they would rush headlong into and expand upon on their next album. And the battle over this sound, along with personal issues, would break up the band. In October of 1994, the band released Dogman Star. This was produced by Ed Buller. He also produced the first album, so the band really enjoyed his work. The band, except for Bernard, that is. Bernard pretty much wanted to produce this album himself. He was shouted down by the band, and really bad things happened. This recording did not go well. Incidentally, this is a 2013 pressing. It sounds pretty good. It does not sound great. Point of fact, I don't think the originals even sound great. This is not an audiophile recording by any stretch of the imagination. The one word that I would say about the production of this album is murky. I have always had problems with this production sound. Bernard Butler, the guitarist, hated what Ed Buller was doing to this album. In the subsequent years, Brett Anderson now feels exactly the same way. To which Bernard was like, yeah, a lot of good it does me now. But anyway, onto the album. It is a 2-disc set because the songs are so very, very long. On some that works, on some it does not. If there's a better opener for any music album than a track called Introducing the Band, I've yet to hear it. With lyrics that name-check sex, drugs, and violence, Brett is keying you in to the album that's to come. The lyrics to the song also give this album its title. It's dirgy. It's kind of got a little monk chanting. I believe Brett was living near monks when he wrote this, and he heard their chanting through his walls. So you get some of that on the track. The track, to me, conjures up images of David Bowie's Diamond Dogs, that kind of weird dystopian future. It is a strong lead-off track. We Are the Pigs, which was the lead single from this album, which I did not agree with, is very reminiscent of the sound on the debut album, although with production that's way more convoluted. Unnecessarily so, in my opinion. It's got a darker tone, which I love, but I consider it an odd choice for the lead-off single. It was not what Suede fans were waiting for. Incidentally, the B-side of the single, We Are the Pigs, is one that I really love, Killing of a Flash Boy, which is as playful and poppy as the A-side is foreboding and angry. Up next, Heroin is my favorite song on the album. That should have been the lead single. So I love Heroin. As a writer, though, I must say I despise the song opening with a line stolen verbatim from Lord Byron's most famous poem. She walks in beauty like the night. Even if he twisted a word or two, she crawls in beauty like the night, or she walks in ugliness tonight, I'd find it clever. As is, its laziness bothers me more and more as the years pass. Nevertheless, it's my favorite track on the album. If you want to talk clever, though, for a band that name-checks hard drugs as much as Suede does, the playfulness of a line like, I'm aching to see my heroin with an E, won't be lost on you. The Wild Ones is another lush, layered song that's very reminiscent of Bowie's work on The Lodger. The Wild Ones features perhaps the most sophisticated production on the album without going too far. Here it seems they got the balance just right, and I wish I could have seen that on all the other tracks. The song Daddy's Speeding is another favorite of mine. So much so, I'm ready to call it the hidden gem on this album. It recalls slow burn classics such as She's Not Dead or Sleeping Pills, except that the song keeps twisting and turning until you wind up thinking that you're hearing an early Radiohead track. Very unique track for them. The power seems to be about the lack of it, the lust for it, and the violent path to it. Bernard didn't play guitar on this track. They used a session guitarist, which is why I think the music just isn't that special. The song's nicest touch happens during the outro. Again, a great outro, which features almost Bowie-esque backing vocals that recall Starman. You think Brett was listening to a lot of Bowie when he made this? New Generation was the final single off Dogman Star. It's a fine pop song. I don't love it as much as a lot of Suede fans love it. I don't see it as that unique. On this track also, Brett's Bowie influence crosses over into straight up Bowie impression, in my opinion, which detracts from the song for me. But as I said, a lot of Suede fans love New Generation, and Richard Oakes was and is a great guitarist, and Suede were very lucky to find him. And I will say if they did not find him, this would have been the last album by Suede. I don't see them continuing on with anyone else, let alone breaking up and reforming again. This Hollywood Life, which kicks off disc 2 of this album, is a real treat, with Bernard's guitar back in control. And it's got one of the best choruses on the album. Come rescue, rescue me from this Hollywood life. The whole damn song is loud, sexy, and catchy as hell. You know I'm a verse guy, not a chorus guy. My favorite verse is, She rocker, hear the audience scream for the death of the king. But a handjob is all the butchery brings, 'cause fame ain't as easy as him. How sad. This Hollywood Life is my delicious deep cut, trademark pending. The Two of Us is a classic Suede piano ballad with some of the best lyrics on the entire album. Here's a little taste. Two silhouettes by the cash machine make a lover's dance. It's a tango for the lonely wives of the business class. You're welcome. Up next is Black or Blue. I'm not a big fan. It's another lonely song for lonely people. And though Brett really puts his heart into the performance, there's really just not enough going on musically to warrant its inclusion on the album, in my opinion. Now, the Asphalt World is Bernard Butler's most ambitious and awe-inspiring work on Dogman Star. Proving himself to be way more than a This Goes to 11 rock god, Bernard imbues this track with an emotional musical core, building a labyrinth of licks that alternately strut, shimmer, cry, scream, and finally pass out before rallying again. It is a virtuoso performance. Bret rises to the occasion vocally and delivers some of his finest work on the LP. Final track, Still Life, is a massive song, worthy of closing an album this epic. Although at times it threatens to veer into schmaltz, the song explodes into an orchestral flourish, and Bret nails the performance with an almost Scott Walker-like delivery. I must say, though, that I feel one of the problems with this album is that it has too many meandering ballads. And when you think about how many great B-sides or outtakes Suede has, some of the final choices for this album sort of mystify me. As I said, Bernard Butler was not happy with the production on this. He fought throughout. He was very nasty to the rest of the band. It was pretty much the rest of the band versus him. It almost mirrors the same problem that the Clash had, with Mick Jones on one side and the rest of the band on the other. And like Mick Jones, Bernard Butler was the musician. The ad that they put in the paper to get him said no musos wanted. He is perhaps the biggest muso, it turns out. Bernard Butler at the time, his father had just died. He just wanted to grieve. He didn't want to go on tour. The rest of the band were heavily into drugs. Bernard was not, and he gave a classic "it's him or me" scenario with producer Ed Buller, and the band said, fine, we'll call your bluff, we want Ed, and they locked him out of the studio and threw his guitars on the street. So, Bernard Butler was no more. As I said, their new guitarist was fantastic. They toured Dogman Star. There's a fantastic bootleg. It's called Cover Me. They're in Canada, I believe, on the Dogman Star tour. The bootleg features Bernard's replacement, an 18-year-old Richard Oakes. And he does an amazing job for anyone, let alone for a kid replacing someone who has been hailed as the Johnny Marr of his generation. So Richard Oakes is a kick-ass guitarist. But for me, the magic of Suede, my Suede, is the Bernard Butler years. Bernard Butler and Brett Anderson later teamed up as The Tears and put out a very good album and a very good tour. The Tears were a great band. However, their major problem was that they were not Suede. And anytime those two team up, whatever they're doing is going to be compared to classic Suede. No older rockers can compete against their younger, more beautiful selves. By its nature, pop music is a youth-oriented medium, but The Tears are worth checking out. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this ridiculously deep dive into early Suede. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell, and I will see you next week with a lot more cool stuff.